Yummy. This is the first time I've ever had such delicious sushi. For a moment, I forgot I was in a restaurant and, as a young elementary school student, I blurted out loudly. That day, I was at a sushi restaurant for the first time in my life. I was there as a reward for my good mock exam results, brought by my father. "Eat whatever you like," he said. He must have been in a really good mood. My father said this with a smile. While I was enjoying the sushi, I was fascinated by the chef at the counter, who was making sushi as if performing magic. Whether he knew I was watching or not, the chef continued to make sushi with a smile. Sometimes he'd say, "Watch closely, young man," and deliberately make sushi right in front of me. That day, not only my stomach but also my heart was filled, and I went home content. From now on, if you do well on your tests, I'll take you out to eat whatever you want, my father said on the way home. I wondered if he was serious, as he had had quite a bit to drink. Noticing my thoughts, he became a bit more serious and said, "Don't worry, I'll keep my promise." From then on, eating out became a customary reward for my good mock exam results. "You can choose anywhere you like," my father would say, but I always picked that sushi restaurant. I wanted to eat sushi, of course, but watching the chef make sushi was my greatest joy. "Understood," my father said on the day of the final exam results before my private middle school entrance exam. "Sorry, I wasn't listening." When I said that, my father said, "Listen up, this is important," and started speaking again. I wanted to go to college, but my parents said they couldn't afford it, so I couldn't go. "I want you to go to college, preferably somewhere your cousins can't easily get into. Get into a good college. Then your future will be secure. Remember, it's a promise between men." I thought, I can't just agree to a promise like that, but I said, "Understood." I worked hard to meet my father's expectations. Thanks to my efforts, I was able to attend a well-known private middle school in my area and got accepted into one of the top high schools in the state. Though it's odd to say it myself, I was top of my class in high school and managed to get into a university my cousins couldn't easily attend, just as my father wanted. Having been focused solely on my studies up to high school, I was the same age as the number of years I'd been without a girlfriend. However, in my third year of university, I got a girlfriend. She was 2 years younger than me, named Ashley. I met Ashley at a drinking party held jointly by several universities. I was talkative because I'd been drinking, and Ashley, being underage and only drinking juice, was a good listener. After going home, I regretted talking too much. I wanted to see her again, but I thought I might have been too forward and didn't contact her. A few days later, an unexpected development occurred. "Have you contacted Ashley?" a friend from my club asked me. I didn't understand why he'd say that. "Ashley said she had the most fun talking to you. You should definitely contact her." Hearing that, I wanted to jump for joy. So, I decided to send Ashley a text. But I had no idea what to write. After much deliberation, I sent a simple "It's been a while. How are you?" I regretted not being able to come up with a single clever line, cursing my low romance quotient. Ashley replied surprisingly quickly. "It's been a while. I'm glad. I thought you wouldn't contact me again." I spontaneously did a fist pump. From then on, I was embarrassingly forward. As soon as I got a reply from Ashley, I responded immediately. I thought if I missed this chance, there wouldn't be another, so, desperate, I believed that responding quickly was the best way to make a good impression. Looking back, it was almost comical how eager I was. But somehow, my efforts paid off, and Ashley agreed to date me. Right after Ashley and I started dating, the job hunting season began in earnest. I didn't have any specific career or company in mind. I just vaguely hoped to find a job close to the university. I felt this way because I didn't want to reduce the time I could spend with Ashley after getting a job. But Ashley was different. She had researched companies more thoroughly than me. "This one seems good," she'd say, showing me a job guide with sticky notes. I ended up taking the entrance exams for the companies Ashley suggested. In job interviews, I felt a good response everywhere. It was then I first realized the high brand value of my university in the corporate world. It turns out, big companies choose based on university, not personality. I fought. So, even though I got offers from several companies, I ultimately let Ashley make the final decision. Ashley's eyes sparkled as she looked through the company brochure where I got the job. Maybe she's thinking about our life together after marriage, I thought to myself, watching Ashley. The company Ashley chose had overseas branches and was headquartered in New York. It was about a 2-hour drive from where the university was located. I was worried about having less time to see Ashley. "Don't worry, after graduation, I'll move to New York too. It's only 2 years that we'll have less time to see each other," Ashley said nonchalantly. I thought she's strong. But I was mistaken. I really didn't understand anything. 2 years after I graduated, just as Ashley had said, she moved to New York. We started living together, becoming even closer than during our university days. Ashley was truly kind and accepting. So, we never fought. And a year later, we get married. Married life was happy. Work was busy every day, and I often came home late. But no matter how tired I was, my lovely wife was there to welcome me. Coming home was what I looked forward to most. But about a year later, our married life changed dramatically. A global economic shock hit, and the company I worked for took a major blow, even going bankrupt. Faced with this unforeseen event, I was at a loss. But more distraught than me was Ashley. She blamed herself because the company she recommended went bankrupt. Seeing her like that, I thought, I need to be strong for her. I took Ashley's hand, trying to cheer her up, and said, "It's going to be tough, but let's get through this together." I expected her usual smile, saying, "Yes, let's do our best." But her reaction was something I never imagined. Ashley pulled her hand away. "What's the point of being married to you if it's like this?" Ashley said, clearly angry. Disgusted with me might be the right way to describe it. "What's the point of being with someone like you, who has no special qualities, got you a job at a well-paying company, only for you to become unemployed as soon as we get married? This ruins all my plans for the future," she said. I felt a chill down my spine. Was this really what my wife was saying? Ashley went straight into the bedroom and locked the door. From then on, she lived in a way to avoid seeing me much. I thought a lot. Was that really her true feelings? Was she just confused and said it? But, is this what love is? How did I come to love Ashley? Why did we get married? What should I do now? Divorce. A cold, dismissive voice said. Huh? Lost in my thoughts, I turned around to see Ashley behind me with papers in hand. It was a divorce document. "You're the reason for the divorce, so you should be the one to leave," she said. Huh? Confused, I was left alone as Ashley went back to the bedroom. I had no desire to persuade Ashley. The next day, I applied divorce and left the apartment with my belongings. I remembered what my father used to say. Get into a good university, and your future will be secure. But what about reality? Even graduating from a good university, you're unemployed if your company goes bankrupt. Unemployed, and then divorced. Even if you're smart and do well in school, you know nothing about the real world. I'm really hopeless, aren't I? Having lost my job and separated from my wife, I wasn't at rock bottom. Surprisingly, I found myself bursting into laughter. I felt a sense of clarity. This was the first time I ever felt this way. Then, I went wherever I wanted, staying wherever I liked. I discovered that even budget hotels could be quite relaxing and comfortable. During this time, I overheard someone speaking somewhere in the city. I don't want to go to work. If only I could live just doing what I love. Doing what I love, yes, that's it, I thought. I headed to a specific place. It was a high-end sushi restaurant I used to frequent, located near the company I had worked for. Often used for business entertaining, it was well known for its quality. "Welcome," the owner of the sushi restaurant said, recognizing me as I entered. She must have known about the company's bankruptcy. "You've had a hard time, haven't you?" she said with a complex expression. The head chef, Robert, also came out to talk to me. "Hey, is this a farewell visit?" Cutting off Robert's words, I said. "Please, let me work here." Robert looked surprised at first, but then quickly furrowed his brows, a look of bewilderment crossing his face. It was a look of perplexity. "I'm serious. I'll do anything. Please hire me here," I pleaded. At first, Robert tried to refuse my offer, coming up with various reasons. At that time, I was already over 25 years old. Even if you start after high school graduation, it's considered late to become a fully fledged sushi chef. It's going to require tremendous effort, and there's no guarantee of success. If I think there's no hope, I'll have to let you go. Are you still willing to do it? Even after Robert said this, I had no doubts. It seemed like Robert gave in because of my persistence. "Be here early tomorrow morning," he said. Since then, I worked harder than ever, much more than when I was in a corporate job. I arrived first thing in the morning to clean. I willingly took on tasks that other staff disliked. Robert was a man of few words, a true sushi chef. He was strict and allowed no compromises. I was scolded many times, even for minor things. I aimed to work in the kitchen as soon as possible, but it was harder than I expected. As Robert had said, the path to becoming a sushi chef was not easy. Honestly, there were times I wanted to run away. During those times, I remembered the magician-like sushi chef I saw in the sushi restaurant my father took me to when I was in elementary school. About 2 years after I started working with Robert, he said, "Help with the preparation." I felt like I finally took my first step as a sushi chef and was delighted. Robert believed in learning by observation, saying, "Steal the skills from me." I worked alongside Robert, making sure not to miss a single movement. Had I ever been this earnest about work? I felt fulfilled every day. By the way, do you have someone special? One day, while working in the kitchen, Robert asked me. At first, I didn't understand what he meant. Seeing me confused, Robert said a bit angrily, "I mean, do you have a girlfriend, you slowpoke?" No, I don't." "What do you think about her?" Robert gestured with his head. Robert had a 25-year-old daughter. Anyone could see Robert doted on her, his only child. She was as kind-hearted as her mother, the owner. She was straightforward, saying what was bad, and what was good, regardless of who she was talking to. Her strength of character was just like her father, Robert. For me, it was an unreachable dream. Or so I thought, as I had secretly harbored feelings for the daughter over the years I spent in the restaurant. I was worried that if Robert found out, he would kick me out. So, I was caught off guard. "But I'm divorced. Even if I'm okay with it, what about your daughter?" "You fool. My wife has already checked her feelings, and it doesn't matter if you're once or twice divorced. What's important are the feelings. Nothing else." Robert said this with a hearty laugh. A few months later, I got married for the second time. My wife and I had our share of fights, but our bond grew stronger afterward. It felt different from my first marriage. I could sense what a true marital relationship should be. We were blessed with 2 children. When I was in my mid-30s, Robert allowed me to start my own sushi restaurant. "Make sure you uphold our flavors," he said, sending me off. A few days after I opened my restaurant, an unexpected person came in as a customer. It was my ex-wife from 10 years ago. Beside my ex-wife, there seemed to be her new husband and a child of elementary school age. I immediately recognized her, but she seemed indifferent, chatting with her family. When the child said, "This is delicious," my ex-wife spoke to the child. "Remember this, get into a good university and land a good job. Then you can eat sushi like this anytime you want," she said while eating the sushi I had prepared. Since my ex-wife's family came in late, they stayed almost until closing. As I finished seeing off all the other customers, a voice called out from behind me. "Can I have a word?" I heard a voice from behind me. It was a nasty, cold voice. When I turned around, my ex-wife was standing there. When I looked around, Ashley said, "It's okay, I sent them home first." She had waited after sending her family home first. "What do you want?" I asked, and she abruptly said, "You've really fallen low, haven't you? From a top university graduate to a good company, and now this, a sushi chef. What are you thinking? It's unbelievable." I doubted her humanity, suddenly speaking like this. I never thought the woman I once loved and shared a brief life with could be so petty at heart. I was so taken aback by this unexpected situation that I was lost for words. "After all, it was your fault that my remarriage was so difficult," she began, as if spewing out her feelings of the past 10 years. "Just stop it." After a while, someone spoke from behind me. It was Robert, who had become my father-in-law. He had come to check how well I was managing the restaurant. Robert walked past me and stood in front of my ex-wife. "You were the one who drove him away when he was at his lowest. So, how you've lived your life since then is none of his concern. He's carved out his own path, worked tirelessly, and now owns this restaurant. You might look down on a sushi chef, but I work with pride. And so does he. You chose a man based on his educational background and relied on a man for your life. That's a world you wouldn't understand. We have the right to choose our customers here. Please don't come back to this restaurant again," Robert said to my ex-wife in a stern tone. It was rare for the usually quiet Robert to speak so much at once. Clearly he was deeply upset. My ex-wife looked stunned. "You need to be strong too," he said, smacking me hard on the back. Thanks to this, my restaurant became well known in the neighborhood. I gained a regular clientele. But since that day, my ex-wife has never visited again. I can run my business without any reservations, doing what I love. I consider that day's event the best opening gift I could have received from my father-in-law. "Somebody, help!" a sudden scream echoed. Looking over, I saw a woman being harassed by a stranger. It turned out that this woman had an unexpected connection with me. "My name is Jason. I am an ordinary company employee. I had a wife. Her name was Emily. She was my classmate in high school. In our first year of high school, we were in the same class and our seats were close, so we quickly became friends. I was raised by a single parent, and I found out she was too, which brought us even closer. We had a lot in common due to our similar upbringing. We hit it off right away. Gradually, I was drawn to Emily, and before I knew it, I had fallen for her. One day after school, in an empty classroom, I asked her out. I was anxious that she might see me only as a friend, but when I bravely told her I liked her, Emily said, "I like you too, Jason." After that, we officially started dating. We both had our struggles as children and didn't have many good memories, so we didn't talk about the past more than necessary, but we felt connected. Emily was a very kind person. When I was disappointed that my mock exam scores weren't improving during our college entrance exam preparation, she encouraged me by saying, "Mock exams are just practice tests, so don't worry too much. As long as you don't make the same mistakes next time, you'll be fine." Despite having her own exams to worry about, she always took the time to care for me, which made me very happy. I managed to get into my first choice university, thanks to Emily. We continued our relationship while in university. Both of us had student loans, and we were anxious about whether we could earn enough to repay them in the future. We also had difficult courses to pass. But we supported each other and graduated successfully. We got married in our third year after joining the company. Though we didn't have children, our relationship remained as strong as ever, and we enjoyed many happy days together. After getting married, Emily quickly became a great cook, and she would make me homemade meals for dinner. Talking with Emily about our day while enjoying the dinner together was a delightful time. On weekends, we would always go cycling together. Emily, who liked to exercise, introduced me to cycling, and it turned out to be fun. Riding a bike and exploring unknown places was exciting. If we found a nice-looking restaurant or diner along the way, we would eat there. If we came across interesting stores, we would go in and shop there. Sometimes we got lost, arguing over which way to go and checking the map on the phone. Looking back, those moments became good memories. I hoped peaceful days like this would last forever. We sometimes envisioned ourselves when we became older, telling each other, "Even as we grow older, I want us to live happily together." Sometimes fate is merciless. One day, a tragedy occurred. It happened 5 years ago, on our wedding anniversary. That day, Emily told me she would be late because she was buying a celebration cake. I was waiting for her at home when I received a phone call from an unknown number. With suspicion, I answered the call and was informed, "Your wife was involved in a traffic accident and was taken to the hospital, but she has passed away." I couldn't believe it at first. She had been perfectly fine before leaving for work that morning. I wished it was a bad joke. But Emily's death was not a joke, it was a harsh reality. I rushed to the hospital, where they explained the details to me. Emily was crossing the street when a car, running a red light, hit her. I saw Emily's body. She looked peaceful, as if she were just sleeping. "Emily, Emily, please wake up." Hoping she might wake up, I called out to her, but Emily didn't move an inch. Her face, when I gently touched it, was shockingly cold. It was a harsh reality that she was no longer alive. This can't be true. The reality of Emily's death hit me all at once, and I collapsed on the spot. Afterward, I couldn't stop the tears. The loss of my beloved wife was too much to bear. I thought time would heal the wound, but no matter how much time had passed, I remained listless. Emily was no longer there to cook for me. I started eating takeaways all the time. I had no energy or motivation to cook for myself. Eating dinner alone at home was very depressing. The bicycle that we used to ride together on cycling trips now only reminded me of Emily, so I stored it away in the back of the garage. I spent my days aimlessly, losing the will to live. I managed to go to work every day, but I was apathetic even there. I would only do the bare minimum at work and then go straight home. It seemed my colleagues noticed that something was off with me, having lost my wife, and there were times when they expressed concern by asking, "Are you okay?" They tried to cheer me up and invited me out for drinks, but I couldn't bring myself to go and kept declining. Deep down, I knew this couldn't go on, but nothing seemed to help. I tried starting new hobbies to change my mood, but none of them lasted. Even when I went out, Being alone made it unenjoyable, and my mood remained gloomy. Ultimately, I continued to be in a state of depression. Then one day, the turning point came. A woman named Jane joined our workplace as a mid-career employee. When I saw her, I couldn't believe my eyes. She looked exactly like Emily. For a moment, I thought Emily had come back to life. By some twist of fate, Jane was assigned to the desk next to mine. "Nice to meet you," she said, greeting me politely. "Nice to meet you too," I replied awkwardly. Furthermore, I was assigned to be Jane's mentor. Naturally, our interactions increased, but for a while, I was awkward, seeing Emily in her. Jane even asked, "Is something wrong? Did I do anything to upset you, Jason?" "It's nothing. Sorry," I replied, brushing it off. I wanted to talk to her about Emily. However, bringing up such a heavy topic like the striking resemblance between Jane and my deceased wife seemed inappropriate, so I stuck to safe, work-related conversations. But Emily's image kept haunting me, especially when I was with Jane, teaching her various work tasks. I couldn't help noticing the similarities between her and Emily. For example, blinking twice when surprised. Also, tilting her head to the right side when thinking. These small gestures were uncannily similar. Jane seemed to notice my lack of energy and kindly offered support. "Are you okay? If you're not feeling well, I can do the rest of the work. You can leave early if you need to," she said. Her way of simply caring without criticizing or prying was comforting. This aspect of her was exactly like that of Emily. It wasn't merely a resemblance, it felt like more than that. I became increasingly curious about her relation to Emily, feeling a strong desire to ask Jane about it. However, given the nature of the topic, I couldn't find the right moment to bring it up, and time just slipped away. Then, about a month after Jane joined our company, our department decided to hold a welcome party for her, doubling as a social gathering. As Jane's mentor, I was in charge of organizing the party. I had to decide where to have it and what to do. Since Jane was the guest of honor, it wouldn't mean much if she didn't enjoy it. As I pondered what would make Jane happy, I found myself thinking about what kind of welcome party Emily would have liked for herself. Usually, thinking about Emily made me feel gloomy, but this time it was like planning a fun trip. However, this was Jane's welcome party. I couldn't keep thinking about Emily forever. "No, this isn't about Emily. It's Jane's party," I had to remind myself. I forced myself to stop thinking about Emily and planned a party for Jane. I casually asked Jane about her favorite food and learned she liked pizza, so I chose an Italian restaurant known for its gourmet wood-fired pizza. Additionally, I rented a private dining room for the banquet and decided to organize a bingo game. I hoped that through the game, Jane and everyone at work would get to know each other better. On the day of the party, after work, we all headed to the restaurant and the party began. Once it started, the party was a great success. There was already good camaraderie among the employees, and many people enjoyed socializing, so everyone seemed to be having a good time. Jane was happily eating pizza and chatting with others. Midway through, I started a planned bingo game. The bingo game turned out to be a big hit, and Jane unexpectedly won a first prize. Her happy face was quite memorable. After the bingo game, Jane continued to be the center of attention, mingling with various people. Though the preparation was stressful, seeing Jane enjoy herself made it all worthwhile. The alcohol also lifted my spirits, and I found myself laughing out loud for the first time in a while. As closing time approached, we decided to wrap up the party, which ended on a very positive note. I paid the bill with the money collected from everyone and left the restaurant. All the other colleagues had already left. As I was hurrying to catch my train, I heard a woman scream, "Somebody, help!" Looking over, I saw Jane being grabbed by an unknown man. "Stop it!" Jane was desperately trying to shake him off, but the man wouldn't let go of her. I immediately ran towards Jane. "Stop it!" The man glared at me menacingly. "Who are you?" "I spotted this lady first, so she's mine." His face turned red. Clearly drunk, his speech was slurred. "She clearly doesn't want this. Please let her go," I said as I grabbed the man's right arm to pull him away from Jane. His anger intensified at my intervention. "Shut up. Mind your own business." He swung his left fist at me. I managed to catch his punch just in time. "This is an assault. I'm calling the police," I firmly stated, pulling out my phone from the pocket. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, the man finally backed off with a parting insult and fled. "Are you okay?" I asked Jane, who looked worried. "I'm fine. Are you okay, Jason? You just caught a punch with your bare hands. Are you hurt?" "I'm fine." He was very drunk, so there wasn't much force behind the punch itself. I showed her my palm to reassure her that I was all right. It wasn't that painful, to be honest. Jane looked relieved, nodded in gratitude, and thanked me. "I'm glad you're not hurt. Thank you for saving me." "It was nothing, really. Helping others in trouble is just common sense," I replied with a smile. "Are you going to the train station, Jane? I'm also heading that way, so if you like, I can accompany you. This area is a bit dark and could be unsafe, and you might need someone to protect you if something like that happens again." "Thank you, I'd appreciate that." Jane smiled. Her smiling face reminded me so much of Emily. As we walked and made small talk, I decided to finally ask Jane about Emily. I have been curious for some time, but it didn't seem right to ask at work. It would be best to talk about it when we were alone, but such opportunities were rare. If I missed this chance, I might have never gotten the opportunity to ask again. "Jane, there's something I'd like to ask you," I began, showing her a photo of Emily on my phone. "Do you know this woman by any chance? I've been curious as you look a lot like her." Jane's expression changed from shock to tears. "What's wrong?" I asked, concerned. I panicked. Did I ask her something inappropriate? We walked to the nearby park and sat on the bench. When Jane calmed down, I asked her again. "Is the woman in the photo someone you knew?" "She's my wife." Jane nodded. "Yes, she's my long-lost sister," she replied. Now it was my turn to be surprised. I was amazed by this coincidence. "Really? Is that true?" "Yes, it is. We are half-sisters. We had the same mother, but different fathers. We were separated when we were young and have been out of touch ever since," Jane explained. "I see." Just as I was about to say that I had never heard about Emily having a sister, a certain memory suddenly came back to me. Once, while having dinner at home, Emily mentioned having a sister she hadn't seen for a long time. I asked her, "Don't you want to see your sister?" Emily replied, "I do, but as long as she's happy, that's enough for me. That's what makes me happy too." It was very typical of Emily to wish for others' happiness. When I shared this story with Jane, she smiled warmly. "She sounds like a kind person. Being married to a reliable man like you, she must be very happy." I replied somewhat awkwardly. "Actually, my wife passed away in a traffic accident. That's the reason for my demeanor at work." Tears welled up in Jane's eyes again. I wish I could have seen her while she was still alive. I was just moved to tears by what she said. But now that you and I have met, Emily must be smiling down from heaven. Yes, I vaguely remember she was always a cheerful child. I'm sure she's still smiling no matter where she is. Oh, Jane suddenly had an idea. "Do you mind if I come to your house and see where my sister called home?" I readily agreed. "Of course, that would be great. Emily would be happy," I responded. We got up from the bench and went directly to my house. After showing around the house to Jane, I shared my memories of Emily with her, as she wanted to know what her sister was like. When I began talking, I realized how much I wanted to share the stories with Jane. I started with how Emily and I met, her cooking skills, her love for cycling, and her kindness at all times. Jane listened intently, and before we knew it, morning had arrived. "Thank you for today. You really loved my sister, didn't you, Jason? I'm sure she was happy to be your wife," Jane said, smiling as she left. After she left, I couldn't help but cry. From then on, Jane visited my house frequently. Not only did we talk about Emily, but also our jobs, interests, passions. Having someone to talk to at home, I gradually regained my energy. I used to be lost and thought alone, but talking with Jane made me smile. "I enjoy being with you. I can't help but smile," I said. "It's great to see you getting your energy back, Jason. I'm sure Emily would want to see you smiling," Jane replied. Hearing her words, I decided to stop feeling sorry for myself. Our interactions continued. Jane, so much like Emily, said she liked to exercise on her days off. I pulled out my dusty bicycle from storage and invited Jane for a ride. It was tiring as I hadn't exercised properly in a while, but I enjoyed riding my bicycle and feeling the wind. More than anything, exploring various places with Jane was unexpectedly fun. I gradually became attracted to her. When I gathered the courage to tell her my feelings, she said she felt the same way. Since the time I saved her from the drunkard, she had started seeing me as more than just a colleague. After dating for a while, I finally proposed to her. The location was a scenic observatory with a beautiful night view. This was a place that Jane really liked. "Will you marry me?" When I presented the ring, Jane accepted it. "Of course I will. Thank you," she said. Thus, we became engaged. And we went to share the news with Emily at the cemetery. It was a sunny day, warm with sunshine. "Emily, Jane and I are getting married," I told her. "We will be happy together, so please watch over us from heaven." We both stood at Emily's grave and quietly spoke to her. I felt as if I heard Emily's voice saying, "Congratulations on your marriage," and I replied in my mind, "Thank you." Imagining our future life together, Jane and I left the cemetery. Returning to my desk, an on-site caught my eye. Next to my desk, in the trash bin, there was a lunchbox discarded. Even I couldn't keep silent, raising my voice. "Who did this? Who would do such a thing?" An employee nearby gave me a meaningful look without saying a word. "I told you, didn't I? Please eat your homemade lunches outside, and yet, you bring them inside. It stinks, so I threw it in the trash," said my boss, Kent. At Kent's words, my anger turned to sheer disbelief. Before I could even think of how to explain this, the person I had an appointment with appeared. "Sorry to interrupt your fun conversation, Max. Has the promised item arrived? It's been a while, so I've been looking forward to it since this morning and worked hard," said the director, Ray, standing behind me. Kent, noticing Ray standing behind, hurriedly stood up. "My name is Max. I've been working at this company for 25 years. I thought I had been working diligently at one company, but having lost in the promotion race, I am still a regular employee. However, I live surrounded by my supportive wife and beloved daughter, so I have no particular complaints about my current life. If I were to wish for more, it would be to get promoted to provide more for my family's budget, especially since my daughter started university this year, and to give my family a better life. Though that's what I wish for, reality doesn't always follow suit. It seems the promotion went to my colleague, Kent, and from April, I will be working under him. For the first few months, Kent, being new to the post, interacted with us with humility. However, gradually, his demeanor began to change. He started to lord over us, outright insulting and belittling our character, and we couldn't keep up. Kent often targeted younger employees, but increasingly he became aggressive towards me, once a drinking buddy. "Hey, Max, the documents for this afternoon's meeting are ready, right? I haven't seen the draft yet," he said, his words dripping with condescension. Despite the unpleasant feeling, I said to Kent honestly, "No, I wasn't even informed there's a meeting this afternoon." Kent was now my superior. Feeling awkward about my own words, I nevertheless responded to Kent politely. Right after my words, a loud noise erupted. Kent had kicked his desk. Then, he shouted with spittle flying, "What are you talking about? It's because of your lack of task management that you're still a regular employee at your age. Listen, just to make it clear once more, there's a meeting at 2 p.m. today to discuss upward revisions of future business performance. You need to propose topics to improve productivity. You need to have looked at the preliminary documents by 1 p.m. It's crucial since people from other departments will be there too. Make sure it's done on time." Caught off guard by the sudden outburst, I was stunned. Glancing at the clock, its hands pointed at 9 a.m. No matter how fast I worked, the documents would be incomplete. I had to suggest we work on it together with Kent. Then, he made an unbelievable statement. "Well then, I'm counting on you. I'm off for a cigarette break and won't be back for a while. I need to recharge for the big job this afternoon," he said, slipping a cigarette into his breast pocket and leaving the room. Kent's cigarette breaks had always been long. But since his promotion to manager, they became even worse, sometimes not returning during working hours. Today, of all days, he likely won't return until noon. I sighed deeply, seeing my pathetic reflection on the computer screen. I scrambled to gather the necessary data and create a logical, proposal-worthy document. Though it's far from perfect, by the time I finally got it into a presentable state, it was time for lunch break. After working non-stop for hours, I was utterly exhausted, and combined with a sense of relief, I felt my hunger. I searched my bag, then remembered, today of all days, I didn't have my lunchbox. In the rush of the morning, I had completely forgotten, but today was special. As I nervously waited at the visitor's entrance, I saw a figure running towards me, arms full of packages. "Dad, sorry for keeping you waiting. It took longer than I expected, but I'm not too late, am I?" "It's fine. I just went on lunch break. Thank you very much." Out of breath, carrying the lunchbox, was my daughter, Katie. Since becoming a university student, she started making her own lunches. Jokingly, I asked, "Could you make one for me too?" and she agreed. Ever since, I've been bringing her homemade lunches to work daily, and her cooking, further honed by attending cooking classes, has significantly improved. Today, she was bringing a lunch made in her cooking class, timed to coincide with my lunch break. As I was about to return to the office with a lunchbox in my bag, a familiar voice reached my ears. "Hello, and who might this be?" "Hello, Kent," I replied. As Kent, returning from a long cigarette break, assessed Katie and me. Disliking the way he appraised Katie, I responded with forced calmness. "You two have never met. This is my daughter, Katie, who just started university this year." "Hello. My father always speaks highly of you," Katie greeted politely. The moment Kent realized the woman before him was my daughter, he smirked. "I see. You're Max's daughter. Your dad must be tired at home too, right? He leaves work on time almost every day despite being slow at it. I worry he can't sleep well because he's bringing work home, given his poor progress at the office." Katie, perhaps too offended to respond, averted her eyes from Kent without saying a word. I wanted to retort, but of course, I lacked the courage, having never considered myself competent at work. feeling pathetic for my inability to respond. Katie's displeasure seemed to prompt Kent to change his approach. By the way, I saw you receiving something earlier. What did you get? A lunchbox. My daughter made it and brought it for me. Is that so? I've heard you've been bringing homemade lunches daily recently, so here's my request. Kent beckoned me over. Could you please eat your lunch outside from now on? Honestly, it smells and is disrupting work. I'd tolerate it if it were just me, but other employees have complained too. As their manager, I can't just ignore it, right? I'm sorry, but please. Kent whispered this, pretending it was difficult to say. The volume was clearly adjusted so Katie could hear. I'm sorry for the intrusion. I'll be leaving now, Katie said, her face contorting briefly before biting her lip and walking away. Seeing Katie's nearly tearful expression, usually so spirited, pained me deeply. She must have held back, knowing him being my boss. I felt even more pathetic. I'd explained to her that Kent's remarks were baseless lies when I got home. With that thought, I opened the door Kent had entered through. At my desk, I placed my bag down and took a moment. I wanted to open the lunchbox right away, but I had a prior engagement and couldn't eat just yet. Deciding to use the restroom first, I left my belongings and stepped out. Only a few minutes had passed, but upon returning, a shocking scene unfolded. Next to my desk, in the trash bin, was the lunchbox Katie had brought. Discarded and emptied, not the container I usually use. I couldn't remain silent, raising my voice. Who did this? Who would do such a thing? My colleague, without saying anything, gave me a meaningful look. It seemed to be one of Kent's pranks. Kent, why would you do this? It was made with so much effort. This is too much. I clenched my fists tightly and questioned Kent. Kent responded with apparent amusement. Too much, you say? That's my line. Didn't I tell you? Please eat your homemade lunches outside. Yet, you brought them inside. It smells. So I threw it in the trash, Kent said, his word leaving me stunned beyond anger. You're finished, I said. What? Who do you think you are talking to, and what do you mean by finished? Before I could answer, Kent suddenly looked as if he had come to an understanding. Indeed, such a smelly and unappetizing lunch shouldn't have just been thrown in the trash. I should have wrapped it in newspaper and plastic. The omelet with spring onions smells and looks bad. What a blunder on my part, Kent said, laughing loudly. Before I could think of how to explain, the person I had an appointment with appeared. Sorry to interrupt your fun conversation, Max. Has the promised item arrived? I've been looking forward to it since it's been a while and worked hard today, said the director, Ray, standing behind me. Noticing Ray, Kent hurriedly stood up. Ray, how are you? What brings you here? Kent seemed puzzled by Ray's presence, as they usually didn't spend lunch breaks together, let alone work in the same room. Actually, I had something for Max. I promised to have lunch with him today. Why with Max? Ray scratched his head, looking embarrassed. Well, it's a long story. Come on, Max, let's go to the cafeteria. About that, Ray. As I began to speak, Kent glared at me. He must have been uneasy about what I would say, but of course, it was impossible to keep it hidden. My daughter brought 2 lunches earlier, but Kent threw one in the trash. I still have mine in my bag, though it's not ideal. Would you mind eating that one instead? Ray glanced at the trash can I pointed to, and his previously calm expression dramatically changed. There, he saw familiar lunchbox and food. Facing Kent, Ray spoke solemnly. Kent, is what he said true? Did you treat his lunch this way? Wait, Ray. Kent scrambled for an excuse. Max has been bringing his lunch every day, and several employees complained about the smell. I don't know how his daughter prepares it, but you can see, right? The omelet with spring onions even smells rotten, and the other food isn't edible. Eating it would have been bad for your health, Ray. It's almost a good thing it was thrown away. Kent, unknowing, only made things worse with his excuses. Ray, seething with anger, spoke with dignity. What do you think food is? Even if it were your own, this is someone's lunch. Making something for someone means it's filled with unseen sentiments. I can hardly believe someone who doesn't understand that can put heart into their work. Promoting you to manager, I need to reconsider if it was the right decision. Kent vehemently objected, his face reddening. Wait, I take pride in my work ethic and don't fall short to anyone. It's absurd to equate this incident with my work performance. Indeed, I threw away the lunch to improve the workplace environment. The method may have been poor, and I'll be mindful in the future. However, Max also needs guidance for bringing in sanitary lunches. Ray appeared dismayed at Kent's attempt to still paint me as the culprit. Let me say this, it's impossible that Max's lunch was unsanitary or improperly made. How can you be so sure? Kent leaned forward, skeptical of Ray's confidence. Max's daughter, Katie, attends the cooking class my wife runs. Of course, my wife has food and hygiene certifications, and today's lunch was made there. Are you suggesting my wife manages ingredients carelessly or cooks improperly? To disparage the vegetables we grow in our garden is also disappointing. Ray explained, causing Kent's face to pale. Yet, Kent bit back, not learning his lesson. Ray, you're not suggesting I get demoted and he gets promoted, right? I won't forget this conversation. Mixing personal and professional matters like this, if it influences HR decisions, I'll sue. Ray responded firmly. Of course, there's no mixing of personal and professional matters. Since we've gone this far, let's lay everything out. Keeping things hidden won't satisfy anyone. Ray then shared his personal circumstances with Kent. As their child became a working adult, Ray and his wife spent more time together, it leading to more trivial arguments and a deteriorating relationship. After stopping the daily tradition of making him homemade lunches to petty fights, Ray sought to improve their marriage. Learning that my daughter attended cooking classes, I and Katie were asked by Ray to make this request. To learn how to make packed lunch at that cooking class. To bring 2 packed lunches to my workplace. Katie was to tell Ray's wife that she wanted to eat with me, making 1 packed lunch herself and the other by Ray's wife. Accepting this request gladly, Katie and I executed a plan today. Originally, we were supposed to eat the packed lunches made by Katie and Ray's wife together. After hearing the story, Kent snorted and said, I understand the situation. I get why you are furious about the packed lunches being thrown away, but you're mixing personal and work matters. Right. Even during breaks, it's important to maintain some focus for work efficiency. I can believe someone who can take their job seriously is in a position of authority. Kent seemed completely unapologetic, now openly criticizing both me and Ray. Even during break time, another employee rushed over in a flurry. Ray, I've been looking for you. Sorry to disturb your break, but there's been a complaint call demanding a manager. Given the nature of the complaint, I've put them on hold. Losing trust is fatal for a community-focused company like ours. Please, we need you to handle this. After a brief explanation, Ray took the handset to deal with the call. His expression darkened as he listened. Glancing at me and Kent while apologizing over the phone, Ray seemed troubled. Wondering what had happened, it seemed the call finally ended. What were you doing this morning? At Ray's words, filled with anger, I straightened my back. I was fully occupied making documents for this afternoon's performance improvement meeting, as instructed by Kent. Why were you doing that? It's Kent's job. Plus, the meeting isn't today, it's next week, and I was asking about your whereabouts this morning. Kent, Ray clarified. Realizing the documents weren't needed today and the anger wasn't directed at me, I sighed in relief. In contrast, Kent was visibly sweating. This morning, I was visiting our clients. Building relationships with the local community is also an important part of our work. That's strange, murmured Ray. Then, he spoke as if admonishing a child who had done wrong. I need you to be honest. What were you really doing this morning? I was visiting our clients. That's enough. Ray cut him off to explain about the phone call. Someone driving our company car was seen leaving a casino in a bad mood, smoking in a non-smoking area, and even littering. They were berated when they pointed it out. Does this ring a bell? Kent, clearly shaken, avoided Ray's gaze and shook his head. Well, the caller remembered the face and the license plate. We can see who it was from the parking lot footage, and the drive recorder would have caught their face. Interestingly, they also mentioned the brand of cigarette, which coincidentally matches the one in your pocket. Since we don't know who it is yet, I'll go apologize instead. I'll find out who it was. Ray said before leaving the room, apologizing to me for the packed lunch issue even though it wasn't his fault. Kent briefly looked like he wanted to stop Ray but ended up just standing there dumbfounded. Eventually, it was confirmed that Kent was the one at the casino, and after being shown the drive recorder footage, he had no choice but to admit it. Unfortunately for Kent, the person he had yelled at was a valued client, making his actions a significant issue within the company. Kent ended up resigning, not just being demoted, bringing peace back to the office. Meanwhile, I was promoted to manager after HR recognized my consistent work performance. Ray congratulated me, insisting his influence had nothing to do with it. Regardless, I felt even more motivated at work. For my promotion celebration, I was invited to Ray's house. Ray's home, filled with his wife's love, was a newly built mansion designed to also serve as a cooking class venue. Katie was invited along with me for the occasion, and the four of us, including Ray and his wife, gathered around the table. The evening was lively, especially with Katie's sociable nature. Ray, this omelet is the best, isn't it? Perhaps influenced by the alcohol, Ray was in an exceptionally good mood, his cheeks flushed as he spoke. Jer, there's nothing as delicious as this in the world. Katie's future husband will be so lucky to eat such tasty food every day. I wonder if saying this makes her dad sad. While Ray said and laughing joyfully, Katie responded with a smug expression. Oh, Ray, this omelet was made by your wife. You're the lucky one, eating such delicious meals every day. Really, to not recognize the taste of my cooking. From tomorrow, I'll have to include your favorite omelet in a packed lunch again, Ray's wife said, looking pleased. Seeing Ray's wife happy, both Ray and I smiled. Katie might not have known, but there was no way Ray couldn't recognize his wife's omelet. I dislike green onions, while Ray loves this green onion-filled omelet made by his wife. Ray, how about we swap our packed lunches tomorrow? I suggested. Trying to hide his embarrassment, Ray responded to my proposal. No, I love my wife's packed lunches more than anything. It's a nice offer, but I'll stick to my own, he said. I remembered the look on Ray's face when he realized his favorite omelet had been thrown in the trash. It's hard to imagine the extent of his anger at that moment. Now, Ray's expression was the complete opposite of what it was then. Not just that. Everyone around the table wore a gentle expression,